Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I am Prashant. I am a project manager at Open Targets. And today I'll be talking about Open Targets platform and genetics and how we use these two portals to help in drug target identification and prioritization. So here's a brief outline of my talk. I'll be introducing the Open Targets Consortium. I'll be talking about the two products that we have, the Open Targets platform and genetics portal, how we help in collaborating and provide all the data as open source, how people have used about open targets and the summary. So let's jump into it. So as you may be aware, and as Sarah mentioned, drug discovery is a very lengthy, costly process with very high attrition rates and very low success rates. And many drugs fail in the clinical trial because of lack of efficacy or safety. And there's a huge amount of resources and time that goes waste. Uh, the first step in the classic drug discovery process is to select a target, and this could be either a gene or a protein whose modulation we hypothesize will benefit patients. Once we have the target in mind, we stand to create and test these drug candidates that will perform the modulation selectively. And we think in terms of a therapeutic hypothesis. For example, modulating this target will benefit this disease. There are a lot of other considerations, but target selection is what kickstarts this whole process. Various studies have looked at the success rate of different compounds throughout the clinical trial phases, and compounds that are have a lot of direct genetic supports are more likely to process through the pipelines. So drugs are 8 times more likely to succeed if target identifies has Mendelian genetic evidence, and 2 times more likely if they have GWAS evidence. And we also looked at the F2 2021 FDA drugs approved, and at least two-thirds of them had human genetics evidence. So the more information we have about the target, the better chances of creating a compound to modulate it. And Open Target was founded to address these challenges in two ways. So first, we integrate the existing public data that provides help in associating target with the disease. And we also generate a lot of experimental data that support causal associations to provide new understanding of disease biology. So Open Targets is an innovative, large-scale, multi-year, pre-competitive academy industry partnership, and we use genetics and genomics data generated by our experimental and informatics program for systematic drug target identification prioritization. A lot of buzzwords here, but I'll be explaining them over the next few slides. So first is our industry academia partnership. So we have 7 different complementary institutions. So there are two academic institutions, uh, EMBL, EBI, and the Sanger Institute. They have expertise in handling life sciences data as well as in generating lots of experimental data. And we have 5 industry partners: GSK, BMS, Sanofi, Pfizer, and Genentech, that bring in the industry perspective of what pharmaceutical is industry is looking for drug target identification, as well as their expertise in the therapeutic areas. And we have the research program, which is the experimental research program that focuses on oncology, immunology, and inflammation and neurodegeneration. So this generates a lot of target centric data. And we have the informatics program that aggregates all this data as well as the publicly available data to provide this through the two portals. So to understand our knowledge cycle, the informatics portal projects take in the public data to enable researchers to build hypotheses. And this data can be accessed in different ways to test these hypotheses. Following on from this, our experimental program takes in those hypotheses to bench and generate new ideas. So let's talk about the two informatics portals, the Open Targets platform and the Open Targets genetics. So the Open Targets platform is a data integration and analysis tool. It has over 20 different data sources for drug target and disease associations. We support various approaches to access those data, and it's all open source. And it's released on a quarterly basis. And this is the link to access the platform. So to understand our data model, we have three different entities. The first entity is the target, which we define as a naturally occurring molecule that can be targeted by a medicinal product. And we use EBI's ensemble database for this information. Next, we have the disease or the phenotype. This is the second entity, and we use the experimental factor ontology for classifying these, and these can be rare or common diseases. And the third entity is the drug like molecules. So we use EBI's Campbell database, and we define these as any bioactive molecules with drug like properties. The true power of the platform lies in connecting the evidence and in analyzing these between the target and the disease. So each entity is a evidence, and that gives information that can be linked from a target to a disease. So let's say, for example, there is an approved drug in the Campbell database, and we know its mechanism of action. So which means which molecules it targets. And we know its indication, so which disease it's used for. So this constitute as a piece of evidence that links that particular target to a disease. And we use over 20 different data sources. Some of them you might have heard of, to connect all these evidences. And these evidences are then characterized into 7 different types: genetic associations, somatic mutations, drugs, pathways and systems biology, text mining, RNA expression, and animal models. Each of them have uh, a particular association score, and we used harmonic scores to calculate these. So as you can see on the right side, there's a drug, there's a disease that we have searched for, AML, and it shows up a table where there are various associations of multiple drug targets. So the darker the shade, the stronger the evidence. One point to note is that the association scores provide a sense of amount of data, not necessarily the confidence of that target. So to give a how a user navigates through the platform, so you start with the homepage and you can search by either a target, a disease, or a drug. Next, you go onto a disease profile page, or a target associations page, and you can, if you search a disease, you will see list of targets, and if you search a target, you will see a list of associated disease. If you click on any of these, you'll land up in the disease target associations page, where each of the score has a particular profile, and you can see all the evidences there. And then you can go to each of the entity profile pages as well to know more about the target diseases or the drugs. And as I said, these platforms are updated regularly. So one example and recent one is where we used NLP to classify why clinical trials were terminated. So here you can see we read over 28,000 clinical trials, and these were then fed into the platform to understand why clinical trials were terminated. Another example is the entity recognition in our bibliography. So we revamped our entire literature pipeline, and with the help of EuroPMC, we now can extract target disease drug relationships between various scientific literatures that are highlighted. So as recent updates to the platform. Just an example of this, we recently integrated CRISPR Brain from CRISPR data from the CRISPR Brain project. We have new gene essentiality widget, new drug molecules and warnings from Campbell database, and these are regularly updated. So previous before this release, we also integrated preprints and patents, as well as various target safety evidence from AOP wiki. So as the platform currently stands, there are over 62,000 drug targets, about 24,000 diseases, 12,000 different drugs, with 7 million disease target associations and 15 million evidence string. And you can read more about the statistics on our community page. As I said before, the genetics evidence is very important for determining the likelihood of clinical trial success. And we have a lot of like evidences that we feed into our platform, and some of them are genetic evidence, but we also have a separate product called Open Target Genetics. Uh, and we created Open Target Genetics with the goal of identifying target disease associations from GWAS and functional studies. Uh, so how do you the challenge is, how do you go from a variant associated with disease to causal genes? And Open Targets Genetics was established to identify this challenge. So this resource provides users with harmonization and integration of large genetics and functional genomics data from UK Biobank, FinGen, GTEx portal. It analyzes this data and helps your provides a result of complex statistical analysis. And it also provides users with prediction of likely causal genes underlying complex disease and traits using a machine learning pipeline, which is called locus to gene. So to give a summary of the Open Targets genetics portal, we generate the fine mapping data from UK Biobank, GWAS catalog, and the FinGen portal. We find shared susceptibility loci, prioritize genes at associated loci, dis- uh, create disease and disease molecular trait colocalizations, and then all this data is then fed back into the Open Targets platform to connect genes with known drugs, and users can also visualize associations between traits, variants, and genes. So all this data is open source, and I'll be talking about the various steps that you can access the data from. So there are a number of ways that you can use to explore and analyze our data depending on the complexity of your research question. So to begin with, there are the simple user interface where you can search and browse one target disease or drug, and then you can go through the evidence and associations page for that. You can download this data as a CSV format, and these are suitable for single entities or single target disease associations. There's also API, GraphQL API, that allows for language agnostic access to the data, and you can construct these queries based on what you're looking for. And this helps support access to the single target disease drug, but this is also one query at a time. If you want access to the entire broader data, so we have partnered with Google Cloud, where we have stored all our data in the form of SQLite queries on Google BigQuery. That is freely available to the public, and they can be easily accessed using Google's interface. You can run complex queries on this and export and copy the data for downstream analysis. If you want our entire data source, that is provided by the EBI via the EBI FTP. So you can download our entire data, including the direct and indirect target disease associations, the relevant entity associations, and you can use this to build your own platform, create your own pipelines from the beginning. Uh, all the code is also open source, so it's available via our GitHub repository, and the all the code bases that we use are also available under Apache 2.0 license. The good thing about Open Targets platform and the genetics portal, it's CC0, so which allows for users to consume data both for academic and commercial use as well. And how we support this data. So we have a very thorough documentation on our portal, and we also have the Open Targets community page to help users answer the query. And if you please use our data or code, please cite our latest publication. So just to give a last example of how people have used Targets. So it has been used as a tool to prioritize drug purpose repurposing opportunity, aiding in Crohn's disease, as a data resource for constructing knowledge graphs and identifying novel drug targets. A great example is the Molecular Targets platform, which is a platform, customized platform by the National Cancer Institute, Childhood Cancer and Data Initiative. So this is mainly focused on pediatric cancer, where they took a part of Open Targets platform and integrated patient-specific data onto it. So to summarize, Open Target is a industry academia partnership. It supports identification of drug targets and their prioritization. It's open source, completely freely available, integrates multiple omics data, and you can search for target disease evidence, underlying associations, and various drugs. Thanks to the team and all our partners for their effort, and thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question?
Hey, great talk. And yeah, so it's great. First, that it's great that Open Target data is available as a CC0. That's really appreciate as one of the potential user of your platform. So then my question is that you do have like the industry partner and the academia partner. How can you comment on like how the industry partner involved in this project as like a potential data provider or use case? Some.
Sure. So first of all, industry partners, they bring in the industry perspective because they are the ones who are mostly working on like progressing clinical trials, and they have expertise in the three experimental fields that we use. So they help us ideate on that and prioritize various projects that we fund to generate data from. So they help in collaborating that. They also help us in guiding how we can improve the Open Targets portal, giving direct user feedback, and help us think about new features and new data that we want to integrate into the portal.
Thank you, Prashant. One more question.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the talk. Very interesting work. Just curious about like how computationally intensive it is when a new target is introduced in the application, because it seemed like it's a very complex ecosystem. So what are the challenges that you guys face in terms of computational costs and computational scalability when it comes to adding new items to your databases?
Yeah. So we have a system for it. We have designed quarterly updates. So we only update at a quarterly basis, and we gather data from all the providers. We have a week for that. So there are release cycles for each of the release. There's some timeline for getting the data, then processing it, making sure it's in the correct form, checking and validating the schemas for that, and then running our entire pipeline on Google Cloud. So we have collaborated with Google, and since it's an open source project, we do get some sort of discount from them. And yeah, that's how they also support. And there are various other partnerships. So the same data is also available on AWS through their open source data initiative as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's thank Prashant again for